What if I told you that the flour sitting in your pantry right now, the bag you used to make pancakes this morning, the same one you baked your family's birthday cake with last month, was treated with chlorine gas and potassium bromate, two chemicals so alarming that countries around the world have banned them from food entirely. Not chemicals similar to them, not something derived from them, the exact same chlorine gas used to sanitize swimming pools, and a bromate compound the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, and China looked at and said, "This does not belong in food." Both are deliberately applied to the majority of flour brands sold in American supermarkets. The FDA knows, the flour companies know, and for decades the industry has counted on you not knowing. Chlorine gas is just the beginning. A second chemical, potassium bromate, is so dangerous that it has been completely banned by the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, and China. Scientists in those countries looked at the data and said this does not belong in food. The United States said something different. The United States said it's fine. And right now, potassium bromate is legally present in flour brands lining the shelves of every major grocery store in this country. In 2023, California became the first U.S. state to act, banning potassium bromate outright under California AB 418, effective 2027. The rest of the country is still waiting. We researched 14 of the most widely available all-purpose flour brands in America against two criteria: no bleaching agents, no potassium bromate. 14 brands, 2 criteria, only 3 passed. Later in this video, we're going to get to number 11, a chemical chapter the flour industry genuinely does not want you to read, and we'll close on number 14, the 3 brands that actually passed, and why that number being so small should change the way you shop forever. Stay until the end, because that one will change your kitchen. Hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we publish videos that the food industry would rather you never see. We put real research back in your hands, and we do it in plain language. If you're done trusting the label and ready to trust the data, you're in the right place. So let's get into it. Here are 14 flour brands ranked from alarming to absolutely damning, starting with the 11 that failed. Number 1. Gold Medal Bleached All-Purpose Flour, the brand your grandmother trusted, built on a chemical your grandmother never knew was there. Gold Medal is the best-selling flour brand in the United States. It's been in American kitchens for over a century, and General Mills built it into a household name on the back of familiarity and trust. For most of that history, the people buying it had no reason to look any closer than the red and yellow bag. Here's what most people miss. The standard Gold Medal bleached all-purpose flour is explicitly, openly, right there on the label, treated with bleaching agents. The word bleached is printed in the product name itself. This is not hidden. It's hiding in plain sight, which is somehow worse. Modern science has caught up to what that word actually means. Flour manufacturers use 2 primary bleaching agents, chlorine gas and benzoyl peroxide. Chlorine gas reacts with the proteins and pigments in raw flour, whitening it and weakening its gluten structure to produce a softer, more consistent product. Benzoyl peroxide is a second bleaching agent that whitens flour through a different oxidative pathway, and it's used in products where chlorine gas treatment isn't the preferred method. What both processes share is that they leave behind chemical residues in the flour you're eating. Research confirms that chlorinated compounds from flour bleaching are absorbed into the body. The flour industry has classified the residue levels as acceptable, and that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting. When wheat is milled into white flour, the process also strips away the bran and the germ, the parts of the kernel that carry fiber, healthy fats, and the vast majority of the vitamins and minerals. What remains is almost pure starch. So the FDA requires manufacturers to add back a handful of synthetic nutrients and call the product enriched. Enriched does not mean nutritious. It means they destroyed the nutrition during processing, added back the legal minimum of synthetic vitamins to meet federal requirements, and printed a word on the bag that sounds like an upgrade. Studies prove that synthetic folic acid, one of the most common enrichment additions, is metabolized differently in the body than the natural folate found in whole wheat. And critically, it's not the same as methylfolate, the bioavailable form your body actually uses most efficiently. The enrichment replaces roughly 4 nutrients out of the dozens that were there. It's not restoration, it's paperwork. The traditional baking wisdom still applies today. Unbleached flour has always produced structurally superior bread. Bakers who care about the finished product have always known this, and modern science just confirmed why. Gold Medal does sell an unbleached line, but the flagship product, the one with the longest shelf presence and the widest distribution, is the bleached version. The bag most people grab without thinking is the one treated with chlorine gas. it's probably the one on your shelf right now. Number 2. Pillsbury All-Purpose Flour. 150 years of American baking, and the standard formula is still bleached. Pillsbury has been a fixture of American baking since 1869. The brand is so deeply embedded in food culture that the Pillsbury Doughboy is one of the most recognized advertising characters in history. For many people, Pillsbury isn't just a flour brand. It's a memory. It's a childhood kitchen, and that's exactly why this matters. The standard Pillsbury all-purpose flour sold in most American supermarkets is a bleached product. Chlorine gas treatment is part of the formula, and while Pillsbury does offer an unbleached variety, the default, the one most shoppers reach for out of habit, is the bleached version. Modern science has caught up to what bleached flour does inside a baked good. When chlorine gas reacts with flour, it oxidizes the carotenoid pigments that give raw flour its natural off-white color. Those pigments aren't just aesthetic. Research confirms they carry antioxidant properties, and bleaching removes them efficiently. The result is a whiter, softer flour with a longer shelf appeal and a diminished nutritional profile. The flour companies frame this as a feature. Modern bakers have begun to recognize it as the trade it actually is. Generations of professional bakers in Europe, where bleached flour has faced stricter regulation, have always worked with unbleached flour by default. Their results have always spoken for themselves. Pillsbury built its legacy on American kitchens. The bleached formula is what fills most of those kitchens right now. Look at the bag on your shelf and check whether that word is on it. Number 3. White Lily All-Purpose Flour. The Southern baking icon with a bleaching problem baked right into its identity. White Lily isn't just a flour brand in the American South. It's a cultural institution. Generations of Southern cooks swear by it for biscuits, and there's real science behind why. White Lily is milled from soft red winter wheat, which has a lower protein content than the hard wheat used in most all-purpose flours. Less protein means less gluten development, which means flakier, more tender biscuits. That part is real. That part is legitimate. The standard White Lily all-purpose flour is bleached. The brand's signature softness comes from the wheat variety, yes, but also from the chlorine gas treatment that further weakens the gluten network. The two effects compound each other, and the flour industry has never been particularly motivated to draw a clear line between them, because doing so would require them to explain the chlorine. Modern science has caught up. The gluten-weakening effect of bleaching is a measurable, documented phenomenon, and bakers achieve similar results with soft wheat flour without bleaching agents when they use the right technique. The bleach is a shortcut, not a necessity. Southern baking schools and food historians have documented that pre-industrial biscuit recipes used natural soft wheat flour, no chemical treatment required. The biscuit predates the bleaching. It never needed it. The White Lily name evokes purity and Southern tradition. The formula doesn't entirely live up to either. Check your canister. Number 4. Great Value All-Purpose Flour. Walmart store brand, cheap by design, and the bleaching is part of the price equation. Great Value is Walmart's private label flour, and it's one of the highest volume flour products sold in the United States by sheer retail footprint. Walmart has a location within 10 miles of approximately 90% of the American population, and Great Value flour is what millions of families buy when they're working a tight grocery budget. The Great Value all-purpose flour is bleached and enriched, which means the natural nutrition was removed during processing, and a narrow band of synthetic vitamins was added back to meet FDA minimums. Most people buying Great Value flour aren't thinking about bleaching agents. They're thinking about price, and the flour companies understand that. Modern science has caught up to the relationship between food processing costs and chemical shortcuts. Bleaching accelerates the aging process that naturally occurs in flour over several weeks of air exposure, cutting that waiting time dramatically. The result is faster production, lower inventory costs, and a cheaper per unit price at the shelf. You're not just buying cheaper flour. You're buying flour where part of the cost savings comes from a processing shortcut that involves chlorine gas. Buying in bulk from unbleached flour brands, like the ones we'll get to at the end of this video, can bring the per-pound cost close to what you'd pay for Great Value. The price gap is narrower than most people assume. The chemical gap is not narrow at all. The Great Value bag is in more American pantries than almost any other flour product. Most of the people who own it have no idea it was treated with chlorine gas. Now you do. Number 5. Aldi Baker's Corner All-Purpose Flour. The discount grocery darling with the same bleaching problem at a slightly lower price point. Aldi has built a loyal following among budget-conscious shoppers, and Baker's Corner is its private label flour brand. Like Great Value, it competes almost entirely on price. Like great value, it's bleached. The Aldi model is built around reducing costs at every stage of the supply chain, and flour is no exception. Bleached flour is cheaper to produce at scale because the chemical aging process replaces weeks of natural aging. Modern science has caught up, and it has something specific to say about the byproducts of chlorine bleaching in flour. When chlorine gas reacts with the fat content in wheat flour, one of the compounds produced is chlorinated fatty acids. Research confirms that chlorinated fatty acids are not natural dietary components. The flour industry has argued for decades that the quantities involved are too small to matter. What the industry hasn't done is fund large-scale, long-term human consumption studies, because it's never had a financial incentive to generate that data. European discount grocery chains, many of which operate under the same cost pressures as Aldi, sell unbleached flour as the default because bleaching is either banned or heavily restricted in their markets. Unbleached flour at a discount price isn't an impossible product. It exists everywhere except the American market. The Baker's Corner bag is in millions of kitchens right now. The people who bought it were trying to save money. They didn't know they were also buying a chlorine byproduct. They do now. If you're starting to see the pattern here, if you're realizing that the flour industry built its entire standard around a chemical process that exists nowhere else in the developed food world, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps this video reach people who are trying to make real decisions for their families with real information. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. This is what we do every single week. Number 6. Krusteaz All-Purpose Flour, the baking mix brand that crossed into flour and brought the bleaching with it. Krusteaz built its reputation on baking mixes, pancake mixes, waffle mixes, and the promise that home baking could be easier. When it expanded into straight, all-purpose flour, it carried the same production approach with it. The Krusteaz all-purpose flour is bleached. The audience Krusteaz targets is worth paying attention to. The brand markets itself to families, to people who want approachable, everyday baking results. It's built on the idea of wholesome home cooking, and that word does considerable work for flour companies. Modern science has caught up to the gap between what that word suggests and what the formula actually contains. Studies prove that consumer trust in familiar, friendly branded food products is remarkably durable. People buy Krusteaz because it feels safe. The word Krusteaz doesn't trigger the same mental alarm as reading bleached enriched flour at the top of an ingredient list. The pancakes, waffles, and quick breads that Krusteaz built its brand around all perform identically with unbleached flour. There's no functional trade-off for the consumer. The only trade-off is on the production side, where bleached flour is faster and cheaper to bring to market. The cheerful Krusteaz bag with the baking family on the packaging is a marketing decision. The bleached formula is a production decision. They are two different decisions, and only one of them was made with your family in mind. Number 7. Martha White All-Purpose Flour, a Southern heritage brand with a bleaching standard that predates any serious scrutiny of what bleaching actually does. Martha White has been a staple of Southern baking since the 1920s. Like White Lily, it occupies a specific place in regional baking culture, particularly associated with cornbread and biscuit traditions across the American Southeast. It's owned by Smucker's, which also owns Pillsbury, and that gives you a sense of the corporate consolidation behind what feels like regional heritage. The standard Martha White all-purpose flour is bleached. The brand hasn't made a public commitment to removing bleaching agents, and the formula hasn't meaningfully changed in decades. Modern science has caught up to what decades of unchanged bleached flour formulas mean at a population level. The chlorinated byproducts in bleached flour aren't a one-time exposure. For families that bake regularly, that use Martha White or any bleached flour brand as a weekly pantry staple, the exposure is ongoing, cumulative, and entirely invisible. Because the word bleached has been normalized on packaging to the point where most consumers don't register it as meaningful anymore. The Southern biscuit and cornbread traditions that Martha White claims as its heritage predate industrial bleaching entirely. The recipes work. The tradition is real. The bleaching is a 20th century industrial addition that the tradition never needed and the recipes never asked for. Martha White built an identity on Southern kitchen heritage. The chlorine gas came later. Number 8. Robin Hood All-Purpose Flour, a brand with complicated geography and a formula that requires verification depending on where you're buying it. Robin Hood is primarily a Canadian brand, and this is where the geography of food regulation becomes directly relevant to your pantry. In Canada, potassium bromate was banned. The regulatory environment for flour chemical treatment in Canada is meaningfully different from the United States. The Robin Hood flour sold in Canada operates under those stricter standards. The complication is that Robinhood flour does appear in some American markets, and the formula applicable to US-sold product may not carry the same protections as the Canadian version. The regulatory standard that applies to your bag of Robinhood flour is determined by where it was produced and under which country's food safety rules. Modern science has caught up to this jurisdictional gap in a specific way. The same company, operating under two different national standards, produces two meaningfully different products. Research confirms that regulatory environment is the single strongest predictor of what chemical additives appear in processed foods in a given market. The food doesn't change because the science changed. It changes because the law changed. If you live in a border region where Canadian-produced Robinhood flour is available, you may already have access to a better regulated product than most American shoppers. The label and the country of production both matter. Read both before you buy. Number 9. Gold medal better for bread flour. A specialty product from the same company, with the same chemical approach. Gold Medal's bread flour line is positioned as the serious baker's choice from a mainstream brand. Higher protein, around 11%, optimized for yeast breads, marketed with the implicit promise that this is the more intentional, more considered product in the lineup. It's also bleached. General Mills hasn't extended any voluntary commitment to remove bleaching agents across its bread flour category. The product meant to signal quality within the gold medal range still carries the same chemical treatment as the budget bleached all-purpose flour sitting next to it on the shelf. Modern research has caught up to what bleaching does specifically to bread flour chemistry. The proteins in high-protein bread flour form the gluten network that gives artisan bread its chew and structure. When chlorine gas is applied, it partially oxidizes those proteins before they ever hit water. Research confirms that the resulting gluten network, while still functional, is chemically different from the one formed by unbleached flour of equivalent protein content. Every major artisan bread tradition in the world, from French baguettes to Italian ciabatta to San Francisco sourdough, is built on unbleached flour. The craft bread movement in America is built on unbleached flour. Professional bakers don't use bleached bread flour because they understand what it does to the gluten chemistry, and home bakers deserve to understand it too. The bread flour aisle is where serious bakers shop. The bleach doesn't stop at the all-purpose section. Number 10. Great value bread flour. The bleaching extends across Walmart's entire flour category. What's true of great value all-purpose flour is also true of the great value bread flour. The Walmart private label approach to flour production applies bleaching agents consistently across the product line. There's no cleaner tier within the great value brand that steps away from chemical treatment. This matters because the shoppers buying great value bread flour are often the most engaged home bakers in the Walmart customer base. These are people who made a deliberate choice to bake bread at home, who took the time to distinguish between bread flour and all-purpose flour, who are investing real attention in what they bake. They deserve to know that the product they chose is still bleached. Modern science has caught up. Studies prove that the enzymatic activity in flour, which drives flavor development in naturally fermented breads, is measurably affected by oxidative treatment, and bleaching is an oxidative process. The home baker who's carefully managing fermentation time, hydration, and shaping, and then using bleached flour, is working against their own effort at the most fundamental ingredient level. Choosing an unbleached bread flour is the single highest impact change a home bread baker can make to their ingredient list. The Great Value bread flour is the most purchased bread flour in America. Most of the people who bought it this week thought they were doing something good for their baking. They were, but they left the most important upgrade on the shelf. Number 11. Potassium bromate, the banned additive that's still legal in American flour and still present in brands that chose to keep it. This is the chapter the flour industry does not want framed this clearly. Potassium bromate is a chemical additive used in some flour production to strengthen dough, improve rise, and produce a more consistent finished product. It works. The chemistry is real, and it's been banned as a food additive in the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, China, and numerous other countries, based on research suggesting it's a potential carcinogen. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a Group 2B carcinogen. That's the specific classification, the same category the IARC uses for other substances considered possible human carcinogens. The Center for Science in the Public Interest has petitioned the FDA to ban potassium bromate for decades. The FDA has declined every time. The United States allows it. The FDA has classified potassium bromate as generally recognized as safe under specific usage guidelines, arguing that when used properly, the bromate is fully converted during baking and leaves no residue. The countries that banned it looked at the same research, and drew a different conclusion. And as recently as 2023, California drew its own conclusion, banning potassium bromate under AB 418, effective January 2027, making California the first American jurisdiction to do what the EU, UK, Canada, Brazil, and China did years ago. Modern science has caught up, and what it found isn't reassuring. Research confirms that potassium bromate is that Group 2B possible human carcinogen under IARC classification. Studies prove that improper baking conditions, temperatures slightly lower than ideal, or baking times slightly shorter than specified, can result in residual bromate in the finished product. Bread baking produced extraordinary results for thousands of years without potassium bromate. The compound was introduced in the early 20th century as a processing aid. King Arthur flour voluntarily removed it. Other brands chose to keep it. The FDA never required them to remove it. The fact that potassium bromate is banned in 5 major economies and still legal in the United States, except California, starting in 2027, isn't an accident of regulatory timing. It's a regulatory choice that the American flour industry lobbied to protect. Your flour is one of the products that choice was made for. Now, the 3 brands that passed, what they did differently, who made the voluntary choices, and why it matters that they did. We've looked at 11 brands that fail the 2-point safety test. We've looked at the chemistry those brands carry into your kitchen. Here's the part that the flour industry finds most inconvenient, because what these 3 brands prove is that clean flour is not a premium impossibility, it's a choice, and 3 companies made it. Number 12. King Arthur All-Purpose Flour. King Arthur is the clearest case study in voluntary commitment in the entire American flour industry. The brand publicly and explicitly committed to never bleaching its flour. It voluntarily removed potassium bromate from its formulas at a time when no American regulation required it to do so, going further than it was required to go in a market that never demanded it. King Arthur flour is unbleached, unbromated, and produced with non-GMO project verification. Its all-purpose flour comes in at approximately 11.7% protein content, a number that matters because protein level directly determines gluten strength and baking performance. It's also one of the top-performing retail flour brands in America, which directly disproves the industry argument that consumers won't pay for a cleaner product. Modern science has caught up to what that commitment means at the baking level. Research confirms you can bake anything that bleached flour bakes with King Arthur, with better nutritional integrity, and without chlorine gas touching your food. The answer was on the shelf next to the problem the whole time. It's probably 2 feet from the gold medal bag right now. Number 13. Bob's Red Mill All-Purpose Flour. Bob's Red Mill built an entire brand on the premise that less processing is better, and the all-purpose flour is unbleached and unbromated. The brand's transparency page makes these commitments explicit without requiring you to decode an ingredient list. Bob's Red Mill occupies a broad natural and organic grocery footprint, and it has never compromised on the chemical processing question. Its all-purpose flour runs between 10 and 12% protein content, putting it in the same performance range as the conventional bleached brands, without the bleach. Modern science has caught up to what the Bob's Red Mill approach delivers in practice. Studies prove that minimally processed flours retain more of the natural enzymatic activity that drives flavor in long fermentation baking. What Bob's Red Mill chose not to add to its flour is exactly what makes it perform better for the home baker who is paying attention. It's been sitting on the shelf in the natural foods section of your grocery store, waiting for you to notice it. Number 14. Arrowhead Mills Organic All-Purpose Flour. The most complete answer to everything raised in this video. Arrowhead Mills carries USDA Organic certification, which legally prohibits synthetic bleaching agents, including both chlorine gas and benzoyl peroxide, and potassium bromate. This isn't a voluntary marketing commitment. It's a federal regulatory prohibition enforced through the certification process. The Codex Alimentarius, the international food standards body that informs regulatory decisions at the EU and WHO level, maintains that organic certification standards represent the most stringent framework available for eliminating synthetic chemical additives from food production. The organic certification also addresses the glyphosate layer that runs through the entire conventional wheat supply chain. The Environmental Working Group conducted residue testing on conventional wheat flour products in the United States and found glyphosate residue in the samples tested. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, the most widely used agricultural herbicide in modern farming. It's applied to conventional wheat crops, and residues persist through the milling process into the flour on your shelf. Organic wheat cannot be treated with synthetic herbicides. Arrowhead Mills closes all 3 doors at once. Modern science has caught up to what that complete approach delivers. Research confirms that organic wheat flour, unbleached and unbromated, performs identically in every baking application where conventional bleached flour has been used. The trade-off the flour industry told you was necessary, the one that required chlorine gas and potassium bromate, was never a trade-off at all. It was a production decision dressed up as an inevitability. Of 14 of the most widely distributed all-purpose flour brands in America, 11 are treated with bleaching agents, may contain potassium bromate, and carry synthetic enrichment in place of the nutrition that was milled away. 3 are not. 3 made the choice. And you can make the same choice the next time you're standing in the flour aisle. The answer is on the shelf right next to the problem. You just needed to know which label to read. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you just learned something that most people who bake every week of their lives will never know. You know what bleached means on a flour label. You know what enriched means. You know that 5 countries banned an additive that's still legal in American flour, and that California just became the first US state to follow their lead. You know the IARC has classified potassium bromate as a Group 2B carcinogen, and you know exactly which 3 brands passed a test that 11 did not. The food industry has spent decades counting on the fact that the word bleached on a flour bag would feel like a feature instead of a warning. You're not that person anymore. Smash that like button if this video changed the way you're going to look at the flour aisle. It genuinely helps this information reach people who are trying to make real decisions for their families. Drop a comment below and tell me which brand shocked you the most. Are you Team Gold Medal, where you had no idea that word on the bag meant chlorine gas? Team Potassium Bromate, where 5 countries said no and the United States said yes? Or Team Enriched, where the more you think about what that word actually means, the angrier you get? I read every comment and I want to know which one hit hardest. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. We publish every week, and every video is built to put real information back where it belongs, in your hands, before you make the next trip to the grocery store. I'd love to have you on this journey with us. Remember, sometimes the most dangerous ingredient in your kitchen isn't the one you bought on purpose. Sometimes it's the one that was there before you ever thought to read the label.